I'm a knucklehead at times.
This guy lies about so much stuff. One of them was this lie he told about being in Tiananmen Square back in the 80s. And Tim Walz has repeatedly claimed that he was there. But guess what? He wasn't. He wasn't there. Just like he was never in battle. Just like he never went into combat with a weapon of war with the troops. Just like all that stuff. Just like he was never a football coach. He was an assistant football coach. But they called him out on it. Listen to what he said.
You said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service.
Okay, did you hear what he said there? He said, she asked about how you lied about being in Tiananmen Square. He goes, well, I grew up in a small town in Nebraska, 400 people, the kind of town where you rode your bikes around as a kid with your buddies until the streetlights came on. And I'm proud of that service. What? You're proud of that service? Was riding your bike around as a kid until the streetlights came on? Was that service? If that was service, man, I'm a 5-star general. Everyone salute me right now because I served my country by peddling my BMX bike around town, my mongoose with the foot pegs so my friend could ride on the front. Man, I rode that mongoose all day long. And then when the streetlights came on, I rode it some more. But then, you know, we started to go home and I served my country. This guy I mean, he said it. He's a knucklehead. In fact, the next clip is when he actually used the phrase, the now famous phrase, knucklehead.
Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people, working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this right. I will say more than anything, many times I will talk a lot. I will get caught up in the rhetoric. But being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China.
By the way, you have to watch JD Vance. JD Vance's face. I love the split screen. I don't know if anybody saw it, but I'll show you the meme of Jim from The Office and Kevin from The Office and the chili. That sums up the debate perfectly. But look at JD Vance's face. Well, I mean, he's just digging. Tim Walz has a shovel and he's digging a hole and he refuses to get out of it. And JD Vance is watching him and he's just going, man, what are you doing? Do you even know what you're saying?
Hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising Xi Jinping about COVID. And I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is about trying to understand the world. It's about trying to do the best you can for your community. And then it's putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is. My commitment, whether it be through teaching, which I was good at, or whether it was being a good soldier or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
Okay, now, I don't know if he should have mentioned the good soldier thing. If he loved teaching so much, maybe he could still get his job back after this because he's going to need something to do. But the really interesting thing about this is that he didn't answer the question. And I wasn't expecting him to answer the question. I wasn't expecting him to say, I lied. That would have been the simple answer. You know what? I lied. His answer was, you know what? I grew up in a small Nebraska town and I've passed farm bills and I rode around on my bike. That was the answer. And typically you would think that a Democrat moderator would leave it alone. You know who would leave that alone? David Muir. David Muir would have been like, thank you, Governor. And he would have moved back. Thank you, Governor. Senator Vance, why are you such a horrible person? That's what David Muir would have done. But Margaret Brennan, for whatever reason, asked him to answer the question and kind of hung the dude out to dry.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance. What? Here's what I imagine happened. There had to have been 25 seconds left on the timer.
And Margaret, you don't have to use it all, right? You don't have to use all the time you have. And Margaret Brennan is like, dude's got 25 seconds left. I'm going to ask him the question, and then I'm going to sit there silently until the timer is done. And Tim Walz couldn't speak for 25 seconds. It was the most awkward moment. As good as JD Vance was, pretty much every second that he spoke, Tim Walz was the opposite. Every second that he spoke, and the silences were pain. Listen again. It's so just, to me especially, they call it dead air. But the awkward silences where you know this man's brain is struggling. It's like, please. The mouth. His mouth is talking to his brain going, throw me a bone. Throw me a lifeline. Get the life. Give me something to say. And his brain just can't keep up.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
And that's even the worst part. He goes, I misspoke, and I was in Hong Kong, and from being in Hong Kong, I learned a lot about governance. Yeah. You know what kind of governance they have in Hong Kong? Communism. Well, I guess back then it was still wasn't part of mainland China. But look, when you go to China for that long and you come back and say, I learned a lot about governance, you're talking about communism. I wish that were the worst. I wish that was it. I wish that I could let the guy go. I wish that I could just stop and just give him a breather. Just say, okay, we've tormented you enough, Tim Walz. I wish I could stop at this moment and say, Tim Walz, you served your best. You failed miserably. It's time for you're done. We relieve you of your duties. I'm not going to go in it, but I can't, because that wasn't even the worst. That wasn't even the worst thing that Tim Walz said. They got into a topic, they got into a conversation of school safety. And that means school shootings. Now, school shootings is not a funny topic at all. But when you invite Tim Walz into the conversation, you get some really, really bizarre sound bites. And one of the most bizarre sound bites we've ever had from a politician during a debate was when Tim Walz said this.
Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but it's only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA.
Okay. This was the moment that broke the internet. This was the moment when Democrats were scrambling. This was the moment when Kamala Harris and her campaign were looking through the bylaws to see, what's the rule about changing vice presidential running mates with 30 days left in the election? What are the odds that we can still win if we kick this guy to the curb and pick somebody else like Mark Kelly? How do we go about finding an alternative? Because I think we messed up. I'm pretty sure. He said, in case you missed it,
So I've become friends with school shooters.
I've become friends with school shooters. Why did you used to be against an assault weapons ban, now you're for an assault weapons ban. Why is that? And he said, well, I sat with the Sandy Hook families and I've become friends with school shooters.
So I've become friends with school shooters.
I'm not really sure if that's accurate. In fact, I'm probably sure that that's not true, which means again, it's a lie. Maybe he just misspoke again because, you know,
And I'm a knucklehead at times.
maybe that was one of those times. Maybe that was one of those times. Maybe that was one of those times.
Is Tim Walz a moron?
Yeah, the answer is yes.
So I've become friends with school shooters.
He's a moron. He's a knucklehead. And oh, by the way, he's friends with school shooters. That was instantly memed and shared by everybody. Everybody I know shared some form of meme about Tim Walz being friends with school shooters, including Donald Trump. I don't know who made the meme so quickly. Somebody did. But Donald Trump had it up on his Truth Social ASAP. I became friends with school shooters, Tim Walz. Then he had another meme with JD Vance, and it said, not friends with school shooters. If you go in there this morning, there's all kinds of there's the Friends logo, but instead of Joey and Rachel and Phoebe and the rest of them, It's Tim Walz and a bunch of school shooters. This is, again, the moment that, I mean, there were a lot of them, but this is the moment that sunk Tim Walz. He felt so bad about this. He was so distraught. He was so depressed that you know what he needed to do? After the debate, immediately after the debate, he was like, I need some comfort food. I need some pizza. So Tim Walz, I kid you not, after the debate, immediately after the debate, grabbed Gwen and went out for pizza.
Can you clarify what you meant when you said you befriended school shooters?
Oh, but it does. He couldn't escape it. All the guy wants is some pizza.
Oh, that one looks good.
Yeah, pepperoni sausage, pepperoni bacon, pepperoni mojo, only pepperoni.
Let's do sausage.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Well, I'm not, by the way, I'm not surprised that Tim Walz said, let's do sausage. No. Given the choices, what is Tim Walz like on his pizza? Probably sausage. Who ordered the 12-inch sausage? Oh, that would be Tim over there. Okay. So anyway, but the guy goes, he's like, okay, I got to go get some pizza. I'm starving. I just said something really ridiculous. I'm probably going to get fired from all my jobs. Can I go get some pizza? And he can't even escape. He can't even escape his own stupidity at the pizza parlor.
Can you clarify what you meant when you said you befriended school shooters?
I mean, what person would ever think in their lives that as a reporter, whether a journalist or a citizen reporter, whatever, what person would ever think at one point in my life, I'm going to have to ask a vice presidential candidate to clarify what they meant by, I've become friends with school shooters.
So I've become friends with school shooters.
I'm sorry. Could you clarify that for me? What do you mean by friends? Like you hang out? Slumber parties? You text each other? Like what are we talking about? How friendly are you? Could you borrow sugar from each other? Like a couple bullets? What is it?